very good morning to all of you. This is Padma Mahapatro. So now let us proceed with today's class without any delay, right? In the previous class, I have already completed with the principle of division of work, principle of division of work. It is also called as principle of division of labor, right? We completed with the principle of unity of command, principle of unity of command, right? And we completed with the principle of unity of direction, principle of unity of direction, and we completed with the principle of scalar chain, principle of scalar chain, right? So I hope all the four concepts or all the four principles are clear to you. Let me tell you, I took almost two classes to explain the first three principles, that is principle of division of work and principle of unity of command and unity of direction. I almost took two classes to make the concepts clear. I hope children you are able to get me, you are able to understand what I am teaching. So shall we proceed? So without any delay, let me tell you, out of 14 principles, how many did we complete? 1, 2, 3, 4. That is principle of division of work, also called as division of labor. So no more recap. I took two classes to explain, so there will be no more recap or a quick review. I will just proceed with today's class. We completed principle of division of work, principle of unity of command, principle of unity of direction, and we completed the principle of scalar chain. So without any further delay, let us proceed with the new principle, that is the fifth principle, parity between authority and responsibility. What is the fifth one, or the today's topic of concern? So what is our topic of discussion for today? Principle of parity, principle of parity between authority and responsibility. Principle of parity between authority and responsibility. So what is our topic of discussion today? We already completed 4 out of 14 principles. Today we are starting with the fifth principle, or the principle of parity between authority and responsibility. It is a very lengthy name, right? It would be difficult to remember at a stretch if you are hearing it or coming across it for the first time. I'm sorry, excuse me. So, what do you mean by parity? Parity means what? Parity between, make some guess, just give a wild thinking or make guesses in your mind. Parity between what? Authority and responsibility. So, what do you mean by authority? Authority means power, right? And what do you mean by responsibility? Responsibility means duty, means parity. Parity means there should be a balance between authority and responsibility. Why? Henry Fayol said that, not you and me. I am not developing this concept. I have not brought out this concept, but think logically, think rationally or practically. Give it a logical thinking. Give it a reasoning. Logically or practically think. Henry Fayol developed this principle, not you and me. He said that, what did Henry Fayol say? Henry Fayol said that there should be parity. Parity means balance. Balance between what? Between authority and responsibility. Authority means what? Authority means power. And responsibility means duty. So Henry Fayol said that there should be a balance or an equilibrium should be established between authority and responsibility. Just like, I am not a very good artist, but I am making an effort, right? I am just giving it a try to make it more simpler for you to understand. Have you seen a bicycle? Okay, somewhat I am not a good artist as I told you. Please do not laugh. These are the wheels of a bicycle, right? This is a bicycle. Okay, this is the seat where you sit. So, this is somewhat like a bicycle. I am not a good artist. This is somewhat like a bicycle. A bicycle has means two. A bicycle has two wheels. These are the wheels, right? This is another wheel. So, what is this? This is a bicycle. Cycle, right? So, one wheel is what? One wheel is authority and the other wheel is what? Responsibility, right? So, what did Henry Fayol say, and who is balancing it? The handlebar. The handlebar of the bicycle, the handle rod or the handlebar, right? Who is balancing this? This is called nothing but parity. So what does this bicycle have to do with our principle? I am just trying to correlate, children, to make it more simpler, to make it more easy for you to understand, grasp or conceive the concept. See, Henry Fayol propounded a principle called as the principle of parity between authority and responsibility. Authority means power, responsibility means duty. See, this is somewhat compared to a bicycle. What? A bicycle. A bicycle has two wheels, right? Think one wheel to be authority, the other wheel to be responsibility. See, as small kids, as toddlers, as small children, you must have played with a tricycle. Tricycle has three wheels. It requires no balance. But when you are given a bicycle for the first time, did you just ride a bicycle without any effort, without any problem or any effort? Did you never trip down the bicycle? Of course. Why? Because you could not establish a balance. But slowly, with practice over a period of time, you could ride a bicycle. Why? Because you could bring the balance between the front wheel and the back wheel. A bicycle has two wheels. So what has to be established? To ride the bicycle, you need to establish a balance between the front wheel and the back wheel. So who establishes the balance? Who maintains it? The handlebar. Parity means balance or equilibrium, right? Should be established between what? The front wheel and the back wheel. So what are the two wheels? One wheel is authority and the other wheel is responsibility. So just like a bicycle, Henry Fayol said that, Henry Fayol propounded the principle saying that authority and responsibility go hand in hand or they go side by side. What? Authority and responsibility go side by side or hand in hand. They are just like the two wheels of a bicycle. You need to establish a balance between both of them. Why? Responsibility means duty, authority means power. Because why you need to establish a balance or you need to establish an equilibrium? Why? Because you have authority, means you have power, but you don't have responsibility. That is, you don't take up the duty. So that will render you ineffective. At the same time, please do underline, point to be noted. At the same time, you have the responsibility. You have the responsibility, you are duty minded, but you don't have the required authority or the power in hand to exercise your duty. You are duty minded, you are responsible enough. You have the responsibility, but you don't have the authority. Means you don't have the required power or you cannot use your discretion. So what? That will render you what? It leads to irresponsible behavior. Let me repeat once again. You have authority, but you don't have responsibility. I repeat, you have authority, but you don't have responsibility. That leads to irresponsible behavior. You have responsibility, but you don't have the required authority or power. that will make you ineffective. Right? Let me repeat once again, children. So what did you understand? The principle of parity between authority and responsibility says that both authority and responsibility go side by side, or they go hand in hand. They are just like the two wheels of a bicycle. A equilibrium or a balance has to be established between authority and responsibility. Why? Because authority means power, responsibility means duty. A person who is responsible, who has the responsibility but does not have authority or the required power to use his discretion will be ineffective. At the same time, if the person has authority, all the required powers, but he is not responsible or he is not dutiful, then what will it lead to? It will make the person irresponsible. So, I am repeating the same concept once again in Odia for making it more easier, simpler for the student folk to understand. ताहेले आमे आज कोन पढ़िया जाउछु? Today we are going to discuss the principle of parity. Parity माने balance, माने equilibrium. का भीतर balance रहया पड़िबो? हेनरी फेयल कहिले कि सदा बेले सबु बेले बैलेंस रहया पड़िबो. को दिडा भीतर बैलेंस रहया पड़िबो सेटा तमे मु कहिनु. फादर ऑफ प्रिंसिपल्स ऑफ मैनेजमेंट हेनरी फेयल जो 14 प्रिंसिपल बाहर करले से कहले कि अथॉरिटी और रिस्पांसिबिलिटी भीतर पैरिटी. पैरिटी माने बैलेंस रहया को पड़िबो. का भीतर अथॉरिटी और रिस्पांसिबिलिटी मझिरे बैलेंस रहया को पड़िबो. माने दीटा जागो साइड बाय साइड हैंड इन हैंड जीवा पड़ियो. कोडा अथॉरिटी और रिस्पांसिबिलिटी. अथॉरिटी माने कोन? अथॉरिटी माने पावर, अधिकार. रेस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी माने दायित्व, ड्यूटी. काहे कि रेस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी अथॉरिटी भीतर बैलेंस रहबा को पड़िबो. नथले कोन होए? कोचणे हेनरी फेयल कहले कि अथॉरिटी रेस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी दीटा जा साइड बाय साइड दे शुड गो टुगेदर साइमल्टेनियसली जीवा को पड़िबो. काहे कि मन करो मु बहुत दायित्वमान, मो पाखरे रेस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी अछि, किंतु जहा दरकार सेतिकी अधिकार, सेतिकी पावर, सेतिकी अथॉरिटी मो पाखरे नाही, ताले मु चाहिले भी किछि करि परबी नाही. ताले व्हाट? आई विल बी इनएफेक्टिव. ठीक सेमिति मो पाखरे सबु अधिकार, ऑल रिक्वायर्ड पावर अछि. मो हाथ रे सबु अथॉरिटी, सबु पावर. अथॉरिटी माने पावर, सबु अधिकार अछि. आई हैव ऑल द पावर और द अथॉरिटी रिक्वायर्ड, बट आई एम नॉट रेस्पॉन्सिबल, आई एम नॉट ड्यूटीफुल. किंतु मो पाखरे अथॉरिटी अछि, पावर अछि, किंतु मु दायित्व नोनी. मु दायित्वमान नाही, मो पाखरे दायित्व नाही, मु दायित्व नोनी. ताहले कोन हबो? इट विल लीड टू इररेस्पॉन्सिबल बिहेवियर. मो पाखरे पावर अछि सिना, दायित्व मु नोनी, मो पाखरे दायित्व नै, ताहले मु कोन? मु जन इररेस्पॉन्सिबल लोक हेबी. राइट? सेटा ही हेनरी फेयल कहले. व्हाट डिड ही से? हेनरी फेयल सेड दैट authority should commensurate. Commensurate means match. It should balance, parity, commensurate. Both the words are used in a similar sense to convey a similar meaning. Parity out podala commensurate. COMMENSURATE. In case you come across this word, do not panic. Kone edoda podota nuwa podota, do not panic. Commensurate also reveals the similar meaning, or it is used in the same sense like parity. Okay, so Henry Fayol said that authority should always commensurate with responsibility, or there should be parity, means and balance. There should be always a parity between what? Authority and responsibility. Parity means a balance should be established, or an equilibrium should be established between authority and responsibility. Why? Because I have authority but I don't take the responsibility. So that will result in irresponsible behavior. At the same time, I am dutiful, I have the responsibility, but I do not have the required authority. That will make me what? Ineffective. For this reason, there should be always a balance between authority and responsibility. So once again I repeat, authority means power, responsibility means duty. Could you see the wheels? This is a bicycle. एटा गोटे साइकिल. सम्माने पिला दिने 3 चकिया साइकिल चले थिबो. जेतले प्रथम थर पे तुम 2 चकिया साइकिल दिया हैला बसु बसु चले देलो गड़ी पड़ुथिबो उठुथिबो बसुथिबो चेष्टा करी करी सिखिलो. केमिति सिखिलो? आग चका पछ चका दीडा चका भितर बैलेंस करले सिखिलो. से दीडा चका भितर बैलेंस कुआटू करलो हैंडल बार. नल तो मनीष बिना हैंडल बार रे साइकिल एमिति एमिति पेडलिंग करे चले देताले. हैंडल बार कोन दरकार हमकु? हैंडल बार काहे के दिया होला? हैंडल बार हमको बैलेंस करिया को हेल्प करिवो मदद करिवो टू एस्टैब्लिश अ बैलेंस बिटवीन द फ्रंट व्हील एंड द बैक व्हील. ए प्रिंसिपल टाकू मु गोटे साइकिल संगे कंपेयर करछे. कंपेयरिंग एंड कंट्रास्टिंग दिस प्रिंसिपल विथ अ बाइसाइकिल. राइट. ठीक गोटे साइकिल रो 2 चक्का मझे जिमिति बैलेंस पाए हमको गोटे हैंडल बार दरकार. गोटे चक्का है अथॉरिटी आ गोटे चक्का है रेस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी. ठीक सेमिति हेनरी फेयर कहले कि अथॉरिटी और रेस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी रे सदा बेले सबु अनुष्ठान रे सदा बेले दायित्व और अधिकार. ओके. पावर ड्यूटी अथॉरिटी रेस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी रे सबु बेले बैलेंस रहबाकू पड़िबो. I hope it's clear to all of you. So one more time I am erasing this. I shall not waste any more time on this point. I am erasing this. I am highlighting the main point of this principle. What is that? Authority without responsibility. Authority without responsibility leads to what? Irresponsible माने दायित्वहीन irresponsible behavior. Right? At the same time I have the responsibility, the sense of responsibility माने मो पाखरे दायित्व अछि but I don't have the required authority. Authority माने power. किंतु मो पाखरे authority नहीं, power नहीं. तो what happen? Leads to or makes a person what? Ineffective. It will make a person ineffective. कौन होगा? It will make a man or makes a person ineffective. So what are the main points of discussion here in this point? The principle of parity between authority and responsibility states that authority and responsibility go side by side or hand in hand. There should always be a balance or an equilibrium between authority and responsibility. Why? If not, what will happen? Because authority without responsibility leads to irresponsible behavior. At the same time, responsibility without authority makes a person ineffective. I hope it's clear to all of you. So now I am moving on. I am erasing it from the board and I am moving on to the next principle, that is principle of centralization and decentralization. Principle of centralization and decentralization. So what do you mean by this? Principle of centralization and decentralization. What do you mean by centralization? What is decentralization? Centralization means concentration of power. All control in one single hand. All power and control rested in a single individual is called as centralization. Okay. just the opposite of centralization is decentralization. What did I tell you? What is centralization? Concentration of power is called centralization. Just the opposite of centralization is decentralization. Means what? Concentration of power is centralization. Relaxation of power is called as nothing but decentralization. Right? Is it clear? I hope you are understanding. You are able to understand what I am teaching. Concentration of power. All power rested in a single individual, all control within one hand, or concentration of power is called as centralization, whereas just the opposite of it, relaxation of power, is called as decentralization. Just the opposite of centralization is decentralization. ताहेले कौन बुझिलो? सबु पावर, सबु अधिकार जदि जनक मुठाटे रहिला, जनक हातरे सबु पावर कंट्रोल रहिला, ताकू हमें कहबा सेंट्रलाइजेशन माने कंसंट्रेशन ऑफ पावर. सेंट्रलाइजेशन पूरा उल्टा तार विपरीत हैला डिसेंट्रलाइजेशन माने कोन? रिलैक्सेशन ऑफ पावर इज कॉल्ड डिसेंट्रलाइजेशन. Or we can also put it the other way, or we can frame it in a better way like decentralization means everything that goes to increase the role of a subordinate. Subordinate माने junior employees को हमें कहबा junior तळ range रो junior employees को कहबा subordinate. Everything that goes to increase the power of a subordinate is called as decentralization. So now let me write it on the board. What is centralization? Concentration of power. Concentration of power is called what? Centralization, right? And what is decentralization? Relaxation of power. Relaxation of power is called decentralization. Or हमें आउ कौन भी कोई परिबा? Everything that goes to increase the role of a subordinate. Increase the role माने दायित्व of a subordinate माने junior, that goes to increase the role of a subordinate is called decentralization. Decentralization is just the opposite of centralization. Means what? It is relaxation of power, or everything that goes to increase the role of a subordinate is called, subordinate means junior employee, is called decentralization. ताहेले फेल कौन कहले? गोटे अनुष्ठान पूरा पूरी सेंट्रलाइजेशन रह पड़िबो मन जन हाथ रे सब पावर ना सब बेले हे परबनी ना सब पावर बांटी देबा पड़िबो. तू ए दायित्व ने, तू ए काम ने, जे सब पावर बांटी देबा पूरा पूरी डिसेंट्रलाइजेशन हे परबो? सेटा भी हे परबनी. Concentration of power altogether is not possible. At the same time, you relax the entire power. Total decentralization is also not favorable, right? So, what did Henry Fayol try to convey through this principle? A principle रो Henry Fayol हमको कौन बुझाया पे चेष्टा करूचंदी, कौन कहबा को चाहुचंदी? से कहबा को चाहिए कि गोटे अनुष्ठान रे माने in a business organization cannot totally run on the basis of centralization, or it cannot also run on the basis of total decentralization. Both are not favorable. Total centralization is not good. At the same time, total decentralization is also not advisable or suggestible. तेणु कि हेनरी फेयल कहले कि पूरा पूरी सेंट्रलाइजेशन भी भलो नुह, सिंदर पूरा पूरी सब पावर अधिकार छाड़ी की बांटी दियो बोली मध्य कहि नांती. ताहेले कोन कहले? किछिटा भाग किछिटा परिमाण रे सेंट्रलाइजेशन रहिया पड़िबो, आ किछिटा भाग माप रे डिसेंट्रलाइजेशन रहिया पड़िबो. माने हेनरी फेयल कहले कि गोटे बिजनेस अनुष्ठान रे बोथ centralization and decentralization. Both are equally important. दीटा जागो रहिबाकू पड़िबो. ताहेले को मापरे, को भागरे, को रेशियोरे, को परिमाण रे रहिया पड़िबो सेटा किंतु कहिले नाही. Why? Because Henry Fayol suggested that there should be both centralization and decentralization in the organization. He said what? There should be both centralization as well as decentralization in the organization. But he never mentioned the ratio or the proportion. He never mentioned the, are you getting me? He never mentioned in what ratio, in what proportion. But he never mentioned like what should be the ratio and proportion between centralization is to decentralization, or the ratio between centralization is to decentralization is not fixed. Why? Because it varies from organization to organization depending on the size and the nature of the business. So what did you understand from today's class from this point? See, Henry Fayol said that, shall I erase this? I hope it's clear till here. You got the meaning of centralization. I hope you are understanding what is decentralization. So I am erasing this. So what did Henry Fayol say? Henry Fayol said that in an organization there should be both centralization and decentralization, but however the ratio of centralization is to decentralization is not fixed. Why? Because it varies from organization to organization depending on the nature and the size of the business. So I am writing it here on the board. So what did he say? Did he say there should be only centralization? No. Did he say that there should be total decentralization? No. He said that there should be in an organization, there should be both centralization and decentralization, but however the ratio he has not mentioned because the ratio is not fixed, because it changes or it varies from business to business depending on the nature and the size of the business. But however he did not mention the ratio. However, the ratio of centralization, are you getting me? Can you see it here on the board? However, the ratio of centralization is to decentralization is not fixed or it is not mentioned. Why? Because it varies from, business to business, What? The ratio of centralization is to decentralization is not fixed because it varies from business to business depending on what? Depending on the nature, and the size. I am highlighting it, the size of the business. Depending on the nature and the size of the business. Depending on what? The nature and the size of the business. Can you see here? So what does the principle of centralization and decentralization say? The principle of centralization and decentralization suggests that there should be both centralization and decentralization in the organization, but however the ratio of centralization is 2. See, this is 2. Decentralization is not fixed. It is not fixed. Why? Because it varies from business to business depending on the nature and the size of the business. So, today we completed with 2 principles. I hope it's clear to all of you. One is principle of parity between authority and responsibility. The other one is principle of centralization and decentralization. Now moving on to the next principle, that is principle of fair remuneration. So shall I proceed? Now I am moving on to the next principle, that is principle of fair remuneration. Principle of fair remuneration. Principle of fair remuneration. Principle of fair remuneration. What does remuneration mean? Remuneration means salary. Remuneration means wage. Right? So what is remuneration mean? Remuneration can also be called as salary or wage. Right? So what is the next principle? The next principle is principle of fair. Fair means what? Genuine or genuine. So principle of fair. Fair means genuine. Remuneration. Remuneration means salary or wage. As the name suggests, what do you understand from this principle? Principle, just try to correlate it. Understand. Principle of fair. Fair means genuine price. Genuine or fair remuneration. Remuneration means salary or wages. So this principle says that, the principle of fair remuneration says that every employee should be paid, or every employee should be remunerated on a fair and genuine basis. He should be given salary or wages on a fair or genuine basis. Why fair and genuine? What happens if it is given more? If the employee is paid more, it is not satisfactory for the business. If he is paid more than he deserves, if he is given more salary than he rightly deserves, it is not satisfactory, right? Because it is undesirable because in business every single penny matters. Every single penny counts. In business every single pice makes a difference. In a business every single rupee speaks. Every single rupee speaks. Every single pie matters. Every penny makes a difference. Mane प्रिंसिपल ऑफ फेयर रेम्यूनरेशन कौन कौन? प्रिंसिपल ऑफ फेयर रेम्यूनरेशन कौन कि जड़े एम्प्लॉई को जड़े श्रमिक को से जेतिकी तार जेतिकी दक्षता तार दायित्व अनुसार से अनुसार ता योग्यता ता दायित्व ता योग्यता अनुसार ताकू दरमा सैलरी किंबा वेज आम रेम्यूनरेशन को सैलरी वेज कहबा दरमा दियो कहीं से जेतिकी योग्य ताटू अधिका देले बेपार लाभदायक नुह बेपार भल ना सेटा राइट बिकॉज इन बिजनेस एवरी सिंगल पेनी माने प्रत्येक टंका एवरी सिंगल पेनी एवरी पाई मनी स्पीक्स इन बिजनेस does really matter. If he is given more than he rightly deserves, okay, he should be paid fairly, he should be given salary or remunerated wages genuinely. If he is paid more, it is not satisfactory, it is undesirable for the business. At the same time, if he is underpaid माने तू जेति की योग्य तार मु कहबी सस्ता सुंदर सस्ता सुंदर मु गोटे श्रमिक को पाइबी वर्कर को पाइबी सस्ता सुंदर मजबूत से तिष्ठिब कि केबे भी तिष्ठिब नहीं माने ए प्रिंसिपल कहूँ जड़े एम्प्लॉई को जड़े वर्कर जड़े श्रमिक को तार दक्षता को देखिकी तार योग्यता को देखिकी से अनुसार दियो अधिका देले आम लॉस अंडरपे माने से जेति की योग्य ताटू कम देले will he be happy? If an employee is underpaid, will he be happy? No, he is not satisfied with the pay scale or the way you are remunerating him or giving him salary or wages. So what will he do? He will quit the job and this leads to labor turnover. ताकू से जेतिकी योग्य ताठू आम कम देदेबा हाँ लाभ आम अधिक लाभ काढ़ीदेबा तार योग्यता कम देदेबा हेले कौन हम से अधिका दिन आम पाखे रही असंतुष्ट ता बदल रे कौन हम से तार पूरा दक्षता दबनी से अनुसार पूरा फुल एफिशिएंसी रे काम करिबो नाही ताहले कौन हम अल्प दिन रे से एटा को क्विट करिकरी आउट अनुष्ठान को चली जीवो सो दिस वाज द प्रिंसिपल ऑफ फेयर रेम्यूनरेशन right now moving on to principle of order what is the eighth principle the eighth principle is principle of order mane what do you mean by order principle of order what do you mean by order see the principle of order states that right person on a right job or right man on a right job and right thing in its right place and everything in proper order right social order for human resources and material order for physical resources what does this principle say the principle of order says that or suggests that social order point to be noted social order for human resources social order for human resources right and physical order for material resources or you can also say it material order for we can also say it as material order for physical resources material order for physical resources for physical resources can you see here on the board so what does this mean the principle of order states that there should be social order for human resources human mane ame shramiko worker employee why are we referred to as resources sambala kai kochu because we have the work potential we have the required caliber je to am pakhre dakhyata achi we are called as or we are referred to as resources now material order for physical resources so what does the principle of order say the principle of order says that or states that right man on a right job and right thing in its right place and everything in proper order so let me not complicate it I may sound very funny you may find me funny but I would like to bring it out or explain it with a simple example can I take my shoes and put it on the bookshelf or can I take my books and keep it on the shoe rack is it no so that is the meaning of material order for physical resources what do you mean by material order for physical resources means for suppose I am taking my shoes and putting it on my bookshelf it's just like that or taking out my books and putting it on a shoe rack is that the right place no so what does the principle of order say principle of order says that right man place a right man on a right job depending on his skill talent caliber and potential keeping in mind his abilities his potentials his caliber skill and talent place a right man on a right job and right thing in its right place and everything in proper order that is there should be social order for human resources and material order for physical resources for suppose मु मो जोता नेकरी बही थाकरे रखिबी बही को आनिकी मो जोता थाकरे रखिले हबो नाही राइट काहे राइट थिंग इन इट्स प्रिंसिपल ऑफ ऑर्डर कौन कहउचंदी फेयल कौन कहया चाहउचंदी राइट थिंग इन इट्स राइट प्लेस एंड राइट मैन ऑन ए राइट जॉब माने दक्षता को देखिकी तांको काम दियो से तांकर दक्षता को देखिकी से को काम पे योग्य तांको से काम दियो राइट मैन ऑन ए राइट जॉब फॉर सपोज in a plus 2 syllabus we have two subjects. One is BSM, the other one is BMS. BSM, BMS. BSM is purely a theory paper. BMS is a numerical paper. It's a mathematics paper, right? We have two subjects in our Odisha plus 2 board. One is BSM, the other one is BMS. BSM is purely a theory paper dealing with management. That is what you are studying and that is what my subject. BSM is my subject, that is what I am teaching to you. BSM is purely a theory subject dealing with management. Whereas in a plus 2 board, there is another subject called BMS. This is purely a numerical paper and this is related with the subject maths. Or this is a mathematics paper, right? But both the names are similar. But both BSM, BMS, it's a jumbling of words. Business studies and management, and this is what? BMS, BSM, BSM, they are jumbled. They are jumbled, they are almost similar. So what happens? Obviously it will lead to confusion, right? I am not just giving you a vague example. I am bringing this example from my real life experience. I have experienced this. I am bringing it out from my own experience. So once what happened? A book was handed over. The librarian was on leave that day. The librarian was on leave. So the BMS book was handed over to the Aya to put it in the library in the bookshelf. So what did the Aya or the helper staff do? Because she was not the right man for this job. See, I am trying to explain what? Right man on a right job. Keeping in mind your skill, your caliber, your talent and potential. Mane tu ko kamo pai jagyo. So the book was handed over to the Aya because the librarian was on leave. What book did I hand it over? BSM book, because that day the Aya was in charge in her absence. So a book was handed over to her. It was returned to her. So she happened to take and keep this BSM book in which rack or in which shelf? In the BMS shelf. So was she the right man for a right job? No. That's what Henry Fayol trying to tell or convey. He says that right man on a right job and right thing in a right place. Just like I cannot take my book and put it on a shoe rack, and I cannot bring my shoes and put it in a bookshelf, right? So physical order for material order for physical resources and social order for human resources means right man on a right job. ମୁଁ ଏବେ तुमको कौन कहवाक चाहूँगी चेष्टा करुँची एड़ा मु खाली रे हवारे बाड़ौनी मुझे मो निज रियल लाइफ एक्सपीरियंस रु कहूँ प्रीवियसली व्हेन आई वाज वर्किंग विथ एन इंस्टीट्यूशन विथ एन ऑर्गेनाइजेशन अ कॉलेज व्हाट हैपेंड कौन होइतिला लाइब्रेरियन छुट्टी रे थिले से दिन पर कहला आज लास्ट डे जिमिति हेले बुक फेरेबो लास्ट डे बुक रिटर्न करिवो लाइब्रेरियन छुट्टी रे थिले मु तो बीएमएस पढोची बीएमएस तो प्योरली थियोरी पेपर तमे जानिचो प्लस 2 पिला जे तमे पढुचो जानिचो बीएमएस टा थियोरी पेपर टा बीएसएम टा कोन मैनेजमेंट पाठ रिलेटेड बीएमएस टा प्योरली न्यूमेरिकल पेपर टा मैथमेटिक्स पेपर टा तो से दिन लाइब्रेरियन छुट्टी रे थिले बुक रिटर्न करा कहला लास्ट डेट दे देबो तो क्या देवी आया कहले मैडम मत दिंतु मुझे रिटर्न करदेवी मु इंचार्ज मु आया को देली हेले आया नहीं करी देखो बीएसएम बीएमएस पाखापाखि लगुच देश कन्फ्यूजन तो से कौन जानी पाठ विषय ना तांको हैंड ओवर करो चार्ज दिएला मु दे देली से नहीं करी बीएसएम बहीटा को बीएमएस थाकरे रखिले पर दिन बीएसएम बही कहीं खोजा पाऊनी मु कहली सर मु रिटर्न कर देची खोजु खोजु सेटा मिलला बीएमएस थाकले कहीं बिकॉज शी वाज नॉट द राइट वाज शी अ राइट मैन फॉर द राइट जॉब नहीं तांको पकरे से दक्षता नहीं तांको पकरे से टैलेंट नहीं शी वाज नॉट द राइट मैन फॉर द राइट जॉब फ्रॉम माय एवरीडे एक्सपीरियंस डोंट फाइंड मी सिली और स्टूपिड मु डाबा बाडोनी फ्रॉम माय एवरीडे एक्सपीरियंस आई एम ट्राइंग टू ब्रिंग आउट दिस example to better explain the concept or the logic of the principle of order. So let me, please don't get pissed up or bored with me. Please do bear with me, put up with me. For the last time I am repeating, what does the principle of order say? Principle of order says that right man on a right job, right thing in its right place and everything in proper order. social order for human resources. Why are we referred to as resources? Because we have work potential, we have the caliber, right, or efficiency, so we are referred to as resources. आमको संबल कहीं कहउछन human resources जेतु कि आमो पाखरे काम करियार दक्षता अछि, we are referred to as resources. So material order for physical resources and social order for human resources. That's all for today. Okay, stay home, stay safe, stay online. If you do like my video, please do like, share and subscribe. Have a good day. Bye bye. See you very soon in the following class. I shall proceed with the following principles. That's all for today. Thank you. Thanks for watching.